the world may be hours away from a new Middle East crisis. In a shocking escalation, the US and Iran have exchanged strikes, and President Trump is signaling a potential final decision on US policy towards Iran. Here's everything we know about this critical moment. With President Trump convening advisors for a final determination on Iran policy, the immediate future remains uncertain. The backdrop of these discussions is a long-standing tension between the United States and Iran, rooted in a history of conflict dating back to the 1979 Iranian Revolution. This context is crucial as it shapes the current dynamics. Several possible scenarios could unfold in the coming days. One possibility is intensified military pressure from the U.S., where additional strikes could target Iran's military assets in response to provocations. This could escalate tensions further, drawing in regional allies and potentially igniting broader hostilities. Alternatively, a negotiated pause may emerge if both sides seek to stabilize the situation, allowing for diplomatic channels to re-engage. However, the risk of escalation remains high, particularly if either side miscalculates during this tense period. The implications of these decisions are far-reaching. Observers are closely monitoring the fragile ceasefire, as its collapse could trigger a broader regional conflict involving various Middle Eastern nations, each with their own agendas. The economic ramifications could also be severe, impacting global oil markets and international trade. Expert predictions suggest that the next 48 hours will be critical in determining the path forward. The stakes are higher than ever, as the potential for miscommunication or aggressive posturing could lead to unintended consequences. What will the U.S. decide, and how will Iran respond? As both nations stand at this crossroads, the outcomes will shape not only bilateral relations, but also the geopolitical landscape of the entire region. The world waits to see if diplomacy will prevail or if we are on the brink of a larger conflict that could redefine international relations for years to come. The U.S.-Iran conflict has evolved over several years, characterized by a series of provocations and retaliations. Following the U.S. withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018, tensions have intensified significantly. This decision, made under President Trump, was predicated on concerns over Iran's nuclear ambitions and its regional activities. The assassination of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in January 2020 marked a significant escalation, leading to Iran's increased military activities and proxy engagements across the region. This act was not merely a tactical move. It represented a strategic shift that altered the dynamics of U.S.-Iran relations and sent shockwaves through the Middle East. The fragile ceasefires established in the years that followed have been repeatedly tested, with both parties exchanging threats and military strikes, contributing to regional instability. Recent intelligence assessments indicate that both the U.S. and Iran are now operating under a new paradigm, where traditional methods of reactive crisis management are giving way to more aggressive posturing. This shift is concerning, as it suggests a willingness to engage in calculated risks that could spiral out of control. Trump's recent remarks signal a potential shift towards a more decisive U.S. policy, aiming to contain Iranian influence while safeguarding U.S. strength, interests, and those of its allies. The current cycle of violence suggests that both nations are probing each other's limits, with the fragile ceasefire hanging by a thread. The impact of this ongoing conflict extends beyond the immediate region, affecting global oil markets, international diplomatic relations, and the stability of allied states in the Middle East. Looking ahead, both nations must navigate this precarious landscape carefully to avoid a miscalculation that could lead to a renewed military confrontation, which remains a looming possibility. The implications of the escalating U.S.-Iran crisis are profound and far-reaching. Recent military strikes by both nations have heightened tensions, resulting in increased military readiness across the Middle East. The U.S. defense posture has shifted significantly, with the possibility of deploying additional troops to the region to enhance security and deter further Iranian aggression. This development raises concerns about a wider regional conflict, as both nations appear to be testing the fragile ceasefire established after years of hostility. The exchange of military actions increases the risk of miscalculation, where a single misstep could spiral into an uncontrollable escalation involving not just the US and Iran, but also their respective allies. Historically, US-Iran relations have been fraught with tension, particularly since the 1979 Iranian Revolution, when the US severed diplomatic ties. The current crisis is rooted in long-standing grievances, including Iran's nuclear ambitions and its support for proxy groups throughout the region. The U.S. withdrawal from the 2015 nuclear deal under President Trump exacerbated these tensions, leading to a series of retaliatory measures. Economically, the implications of this situation are significant, particularly for global energy markets. The Strait of Hormuz is a critical choke point through which approximately 20% of the world's oil supply is transported. Any disruption in this vital area could lead to skyrocketing oil prices, affecting economies worldwide and contributing to market instability. Furthermore, President Trump's insistence that Iran must never acquire a nuclear weapon indicates a shift in long-term strategic containment policies. This demand not only complicates U.S.-Belarus, Iran relations, but also places pressure on allies such as Israel and Gulf states who are closely monitoring the evolving situation. The ramifications of this crisis extend beyond geopolitics. For the average person, it underscores the interconnectedness of global politics and economics. A conflict occurring thousands of miles away can directly impact daily lives through rising energy costs and economic uncertainty. Looking ahead, the potential for diplomatic engagement remains, but the window for a peaceful resolution is narrowing. As tensions continue to escalate, both sides must tread carefully to avoid a miscalculation that could spiral into a larger conflict. The next few weeks will be crucial in determining the trajectory of U.S.-Iran relations and the stability of the broader Middle East. In the early hours of May 30th, 2026, the conflict between the United States and Iran has taken a perilous turn. As the fragile ceasefire continues to hold, both nations exchanged military strikes in a rapidly escalating situation. Reports indicate that Iranian missile batteries targeted U.S. military installations in Iraq around 2 a.m. local time, resulting in minimal casualties but significant damage to infrastructure. The U.S. responded with precision airstrikes at approximately 6 a.m., targeting Iranian positions in Syria. This exchange heightens tensions in a region already fraught with conflict, where historical grievances and geopolitical rivalries compound the volatility. The backdrop of this confrontation is a long-standing animosity rooted in decades of distrust, economic sanctions, and proxy wars. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, often referred to as the Iran nuclear deal, was abandoned by the U.S. in 2018, leading to a series of escalatory measures from both sides. The Iranian regime's continued advancement in nuclear technology has raised concerns among U.S. allies in the region, including Israel and Saudi Arabia, who fear a nuclear-armed Iran could destabilize the entire Middle East. The impact of today's events reverberates beyond military considerations. President Trump, during a press briefing later in the day, announced he was convening top national security advisors to discuss a definitive policy shift regarding Iran. The president emphasized that Iran must never acquire a nuclear weapon and insisted on the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz without tolls, highlighting U.S. concerns over Iranian control of critical shipping lanes. This situation marks a significant departure from previous skirmishes, where responses were typically measured and contained. Unlike past conflicts, the current exchanges indicate a willingness from both sides to escalate, raising alarms across international corridors and leading to calls for restraint from global leaders. Looking forward, analysts suggest that the potential for further military engagement remains high. The Biden administration may face pressure to adopt a more aggressive stance, while Iran could retaliate in unexpected ways. As both nations grapple with their strategic objectives, the situation underscores the urgent need for diplomatic interventions to prevent a broader conflict, particularly as regional allies recalibrate their military readiness in response to these developments. As we consider these potential outcomes, one question looms large. Will diplomacy prevail, or are we on the brink of a larger conflict? Share your predictions in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for daily deep dives into the most pressing global issues.